Hello and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View podcast. We are here on Friday, May 31st, the morning after the Toronto Blue Jays officially unveiled their City Connect jerseys. And today we are going to kind of give a snap reaction. I'm your host, Zach Worden, joined as always by Jori Negin-Shecter. And Jori, how are we feeling about these jerseys?
I like them. You know what? I think that there was a lot of negative reaction after all of those alleged leaks earlier in the week, but as I had kind of said, I think that it really hit the nail on the head in terms of exactly what people were looking for in jerseys, what people wanted in jerseys. It sounds like the players are also quite happy with the jerseys, so I'll give them a passing grade and then some. I think that these are a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I know you initially after the leak said 8 out of 10, and I was a little more hesitant on it because I didn't love the leak pictures, but the more that I've seen them, seeing them like on the players, I'm sold. Like I'd probably maybe go even higher than an 8. Like I'm thinking like probably in the 9, 8.5 kind of range. Like I'm really impressed by them, and I think that they're super different from what the team has, and it's I would just say like a really cool jersey overall.
Well, the first time they'll be wearing black pants or dark pants rather in the team's
Yes.
history,
I
right?
am in
You
on the
pointed that
black
out.
pants. I know a lot of people hate black pants because they're like whatever you want to call them. But no, I really like them. I think it's different. I'm like a pretty big fan of like different colored pants overall, just from, kind of their basic whites or their grays. So I think it'll be cool. I know some teams have like kind of mixed in their City Connects with their normal pants, and I don't think that the Blue Jays can really do that because like black and white, like not really
Well,
the
it's also
best
the
look.
blues are different too,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
kind of,
you would
yeah, you
figure.
couldn't get the stripe on the pants to match the jersey, and that's all kind of part of it. But yeah, no, I think really cool. I think the pants are going to be a nice change. I like the hats. I know you said that you are maybe not as in on the hats.
Yes. Okay. So I'll give you like a little bit of a full little breakdown here in so much in kind of my thoughts maybe on the jerseys and the hats. So the hats are I'm kind of lukewarm on, and I'll get to that. But with the jersey, as I had said, people were asking for two things with these jerseys. They wanted the return of the dark Blue Jays. They wanted black jerseys. And people were asking that the jerseys did not represent Canada necessarily. It was a Toronto team. People were looking for a Toronto jersey. So what did the Blue Jays get? They get a dark jersey as this night mode, as it's called. What's the with the Blue Jays? It's hypernized or something was the word.
I think it's hyperized. Yeah.
Hyperized. Yeah. Yeah. The hyperized Blue Jay, which as its own thing is, very much I feel like a very City Connect word. But the Blue Jays go with the dark jerseys. People get the dark jerseys, and they get the Toronto skyline with the Toronto font from the Toronto sign. So they get everything that they're looking for there. Now, as far as the hat goes, I think that it's kind of a little bit of this kind of cater to the non-Toronto audience, which I get you're gonna do, but you had to throw in the Maple Leaf there because of course you did, because in case you forgot, they were Canada's team, right? So that's where I'm kind of lukewarm on it. And then as far as the tee itself, I mean, they become the 30th and final team to finally put their team's letter on their hat, is what I saw yesterday. They're the last team to put a letter for the team on their hat. So, I mean, take from that what you will. I think it's a little bit whatever, and I'm not a huge fan of adding the Maple Leaf, even though I get it. But I do think the jerseys basically check all the boxes. And finally, that last note, just in terms of the jerseys themselves and the initial negative reaction, you kind of figured that the mere exposure effect, people were going to see them more as the week progressed and the reception would warm up.
Did you see the helmet, like with the logo, the matte logo on the helmet?
That I haven't caught yet. No, but
It's super sick. Like I like the hats, but the helmet is super cool. Like they have like I mean like all major league teams kind of have it now, but where it kind of like sticks out a little bit, and it just looks really nice on the helmet, I think. And yeah, no, I mean I'm probably more of a fan of the hat than you are. I think it looks cool. But yeah, like I mean, I don't really have much else to add. I think
well, here's
the
the
socks are
question.
pretty sweet too, and I want to know what I mean. we can get to your question, but I just want to know what you think of like the whole night mode thing.
Well, that's what I was gonna kind of get to is the whole night mode garb. Like it's something like different for this team. I think is also interesting. But are you copping the hat? Is what I was really gonna kind of ask.
I mean, I think so. I mean, maybe I'll wait until they go on sale or something, but I think it looks nice. I think the jersey, it's I, like just kind of having like the dark color is super nice. So I think like yes, I'll maybe buy a hat. We'll put it out there. Are you planning on buying any of this stuff?
I guess we'll see. We'll see. I mean, listen, we got a couple of jerseys back there for our video
Of
listeners on
course.
YouTube. So I mean, there's room for a couple more. There's one maybe room over there. There's some room over there. I don't know. Maybe we'll see if it's in the cards here. If I think you brought it up before we hit the record button. If we get a Joey Votto
Joey
variation
Votto.
of this
Yeah.
jersey, then
Yeah.
maybe we'll talk. Then maybe we'll talk.
Yeah, I mean, City Connect, the Toronto guy, like sure Jordan Romano and Zach Pop are on the team, but the Joey Votto one, that would be like an all-time jersey, I
The
think.
the hardest Blue Jays jersey of all time,
You,
unquestionably.
even if he doesn't even play for the team, could you imagine like rocking that? People are like, oh my God, did Joey
You
Votto
show up,
City
you show
Connect?
up to a game in like 2027. The City Connects have long since been retired. Fanatics has the full rights to the team thing now, and it's like, oh, it's a Joey Votto City Connect. Could you imagine?
Yeah, it'd be like showing up in I don't even know who you want to put on that list, like a Brett Laurie jersey in these days. It's even cooler than that, I guess.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
One thing with the jerseys that I would like an answer to is what's going on with the 1+4 rule, because we haven't gotten an answer. What's up with the Canadian jerseys? They've worn all the other ones this year. They've worn the navies, the new blues, the grays, and the whites. So, I mean, I guess we can kind of take that and make the assumption that the Canada Day jersey is officially a special exemption 1 day jersey. But I'd like to know for somebody to ask the question at least.
Well, I mean, if you look at the days that they plan to wear them, notably missing from that is July 1st. So we'll see what they wear on July 1st, but they are not planning on going at night mode at the dome, namely because also, by the way, going night mode at the dome. I mean, I'm not gonna say it, but I'm just saying.
There's
I'm just
you
saying.
night mode at the dome. You got to make your way up to the Corona patio, I guess.
Oh my god. But yeah, no July 1st. So and it's normally July 1st is a day game.
Yeah.
So I mean, in some respects, not the most shocking thing that they were not going to be wearing that. But with that said, it still leaves the question of what the plan is for Canada Day jerseys if those are in the cards. A 307 start on July 1st, decidedly not nighttime. So will the red Toronto Blue Jays jerseys make a return?
We're all waiting. That's what we're all waiting for, right? Everybody's curious about the red jerseys. I guess kind of with the party that they had last night, I mean, it looked like a good time. I mean, do you kind of have anything that stood out to you from the release party?
All that I saw was that there was, or what I had heard rather, was that there was a pool there, but there was a stunning lack of pictures of the Toronto Blue Jays in full stadium series garb going for a dip, which I think is a disappointing, disappointing
You're telling
result.
me that they were all dressed up and none of them were jumping into that
I
pool?
think that was a gimme, and they just nobody had the cojones to go for it.
I'm trying to think of who would be the most likely Blue Jay to do that, and I mean, like it would have to be one of the young guys, I would imagine. I can't see like Justin Turner jumping into the pool, but you never know.
I think my top three picks, not in order, are Ernie Clement, Davis Schneider, Vlad Jr.
Yeah, I can see Vladdy doing it, I guess. Least likely, Bo Bichette.
You don't even need anybody. Bo Bichette is the first and only name on that list.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do you have anything else on the jerseys? Like, I mean, we've been waiting for them for a long time, so I feel like we can really get into it. I guess we can talk about the inspiration stuff a little bit. I mean, I have it pulled up here, kind of what they released about the jerseys, where they have the diversity, our strength featured on the uniform neckline, the Toronto coat of arms, so they have that on there. And then the City Connect hat, and they say it has the two pillars because of City Hall. Um, Inside the hat, I think this is actually pretty cool about the hat, where they like on the inside band, they have the skyline as a heartbeat, to represent the pulse of a city. I love like all the little marketing terms that they as they write this, the copywriting stuff. But and then yes, the hyperized bird head on the arm sleeve, they made it look different because it has different
No,
colors.
sorry, Zach, they hyperized it.
Can't wait for more hyperized things to come out. Have you ever heard hyperized as an adjective before?
I was not aware that this word existed, and I still am not sure it does. I think if I tried to put this in a banner, I think I would maybe get fired.
Yes. Yeah, as we noted in our group chat, like with the leaks, the Toronto on the chest is uh an homage to the Toronto sign at Nathan Phillips Square. But also kind of still contains like the as they say here, the beloved Blue Jay split font. Let's see what else we got here. They have just talking about the skyline on the jersey, and then we got the city flag double stripe on the arm sleeves and legs. What is your favorite part about the city part of the City Connects?
Brother, is there any other option other than the hyperized Blue Jay? Is there even another option? What else are we going to hyperize? I'm excited for my hyperized Blue Jays pride hat next week, and my hyperized Blue Jays bobbleheads, and my hyperized, oh God, I don't know. There's some other hyperizing going on that I'm not sure I'm going to share on the podcast.
Smart of you to keep that to yourself, but I just looked up hyperized on dictionary.com and it has no results.
Of course, there are.
So whatever hyperized means, it is a new word from the minds over at the Toronto Blue Jays.
And who says that Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins haven't been active adding to this Blue Jays team?
They're coming up with
They're
words
literally
now.
adding words. All
Oh
right, all
man,
right, all
it's
right.
it's
Let's talk a little bit of on field here, because there is
yeah.
some on field news that we can get to.
So they'll be wearing these tonight as they transition to the Pittsburgh Pirates after sweeping the Chicago White Sox. But of course, I almost think that like the Manoah injury like overshadows the last win and the sweep of everything, because of just his story is just so interesting. And for him to be hurt and leave the game on Wednesday with an injury begs to a lot of questions. It brings a lot of questions to the forefront. Like, how long has he been hurt? Is this something that stems from last season? Is this something that was going on last season? How has this affected him this season? There's just a ton of questions around that. And I mean, it's not great. We'll get the MRI result today.
The other thing too is not only does it beg a lot of questions with Manoah, but it also raises a lot of questions around the Blue Jays, because right now you've got Yariel Rodriguez hurt in AAA. You've got Bowden Francis, who's close, but also isn't stretched out to be a starter. Beyond that, you've got, Paulo Espino maybe, but I mean, the question here is who's your fifth starter? Was listening to Jay's Talk the other day, Jay's Talk Plus, and they've got like a 35 and 38 stretch or something to that effect coming up. So it's not like they're going to be able to patchwork this, because you're going to be relying on your rotation so heavily. You're not going to really be able to have bullpen days, because a bullpen day is going to cost your team the opportunity to use your bullpen during this stretch of a substantial number of games in a very relatively short number of days. This team is going to have to figure out exactly what they're doing. Of course, yes, yesterday they go out and acquire from the Philadelphia Phillies a reliever. So they are active and they're being proactive about trying to add arms. But I mean, as far as what's actually happening with this team, your guess is really as good as mine.
Well, I would say that if they were to go out and acquire a pitcher, that maybe a reliever shouldn't have been the number one priority there. I think maybe some starting depth would have been nice if you're adding in a trade. Of course, they signed Ryan Watson out of Indy Ball, so maybe that's the starting depth that they were looking to add. But no, as far as like replacing Manoah, like I mean, Bowden Francis, of course, he'll probably be called up sometime this weekend, maybe even today if Manoah goes on the IL sometime soon. Like I feel like an IL stint is almost inevitable with a pinchy elbow. However you want to take whatever you want to take away from that, I feel like that's probably something that does land you on the injured list for at least a couple weeks, just to be smart and safe about it without, even if it's not Tommy John or whatever surgery that you want to have on your elbow. Even if it's not that, I think it's probably just a smart idea with like a 26-year-old pitcher to make sure that everything is totally fine first. But so I like Bowden Francis, and it's very interesting because they were so quick to drop him from the starting rotation after a couple bad outings, right? And is that something that you're comfortable with, just dropping him back into that role despite already moving on from him very quickly and not really giving him a ton of rope in that role?
Yeah, and I guess we'll see, right? And I mean, you know, Ryan Burr is not with the team right now, the player that they did acquire from the Phillies. He's been assigned to AAA. Bowden Francis, though, it sounds like he is with the team. It sounds like he was at this event last night. And you would figure that seems to indicate that he is going to be activated or otherwise recalled from AAA in the days to come. So I just struggle to see what your other options are, either presenting or what you're, I guess,
Yeah.
what you're showing your hand, or what just legitimately speaking, what your options are from a competitive standpoint, because the Blue Jays have dug themselves a hole and they need guys that are going to go out and give you competitive innings. Paulo Espino, for the rubber arm he has, is unlikely to do so. Bowden Francis, at least last year, had a track record of success. Now, in a very different role, in a very different leverage condition to the ones that he's going to be facing, starting for the Blue Jays every fifth day, if that is what's to come. Not to mention, he's also not probably stretched out to the extent that a guy like a Manoah was. He probably only gets up to maybe 80 pitches, maybe 85, 90, but that seems even generous. So I just wonder exactly what the plan is.
Yeah, I think it's almost like you said, like I can sit here and question whether Bowden Francis is the right call, but it's almost like he's the only call, right? Like they don't have another option that could kind of fill that unless you're looking to go to Trevor Richards and have him kind of do what he did last year where he got up to like 60 pitches in a start or whatever. But I think pretty much it'll be where kind of the same thing where you got to pair Francis and Richards and let them cover 6 innings every game and kind of see how it goes from there. And if it doesn't go well, then that sucks. But it is kind of the only option that they have at this point. I'm
It's that or Mitch White is back on waivers. So if you'd like to bring
yikes.
back an old friend who has since been let go from his third team with the Brewers designating him for assignment, then I mean,
Yeah,
like, is that who you want to go with? I'm not sure.
probably not. I would imagine, but you never know. Hopefully Yariel is able to kind of work back. He's been like his outings have been really, really short in AAA so far, so not a ton of confidence in him being available like anytime soon. I feel like that's probably another like couple weeks away from even being an option. So yeah, Bowden, I guess it's going to be Bowden for now is going to kind of be the thing, and they'll uh they'll try to work through that. I mean, Trevor Richards was awesome in relief of Manoah the other day. Like he kind of saved the day. Like he did like super efficient innings to kind of get them through that game. And I guess the question is with Francis coming back and then you would assume that Manoah goes on the IL. Um, but we were kind of talking about like roster moves as well, where they brought back Chad Green and ended up optioning Erik Swanson. What were your thoughts about that? I mean, I think it was pretty shocking to see Swanson demoted, but at the same time, it was almost the right move.
Shocking isn't necessarily the word I would use, just because of the results. I mean, an ERA over 9, it kind of speaks for itself, or in that ballpark. But I just wonder with him, if he's not going, you can't really replicate those innings. You don't have the bullpen depth, the bullpen strength to go out there and do what Erik Swanson did for you last season. You've got Jimmy Garcia, who's been incredible this year, has had basically a single hiccup. But beyond that, obviously, Romano has struggled. Swanson just got sent down. You've got Genesis Cabrera has been a dice roll. Tim Meza has been his own bag of worms. So, I mean, like, there really wasn't exactly a great option per se, because you've had so much trouble finding guys that can give you quality innings out of the bullpen. But it still is, I guess shocking is the word that you use. Just it's shocking how bad he's been, and you know, external circumstances have undoubtedly expedited this decline or road bump or whatever it is. Obviously, the circumstances with his son during spring training, and then he also had battled some injury problems during spring. So he's going to get an opportunity now to be away from the team and presumably place in some low leverage spots for the Bisons. I'm sure that they'll be very meticulous in how they use him, but like, you need him to be healthy and ready to go and be good if this team has any aspirations of being competitive. So part of it is obviously a demotion on performance, but it's also a desperation move.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where like you look at it and you're picking between probably him and Genesis Cabrera or him and Nate Pearson at that point, and it's just kind of like he had the option. So I think it does actually speak a little bit to the urgency of the Blue Jays at this point, because this is like I would almost say unlike their front office to pick, Swanson, who's like one of their guys who they in theory trust and have a belief in, to choose sending him down over somebody who hasn't quite proven themselves like a Nate Pearson or a Zach Pop, regardless of how they've been pitching, right? Like we've seen them time and time again stick with the Santiago Espinal, stick with the Kevin Biggio, stick with some of these guys who they have a little bit more invested in than some of the guys who are a little more up and down, right? So I think it shows that like the front office is fully aware of the situation that they're in, and it is basically acting on that by choosing to send down Swanson instead of one of these guys who you obviously you probably think are worse pitchers, but they aren't. Obviously, Swanson's not giving you what you need right now. So I think it does kind of speak to what the front office is feeling at this point.
Yeah, it reeks of panic, it reeks of desperation, but it's also extremely reasonable and
Yes.
probably the right move.
Yeah, it's a move that like a lot of teams I think around baseball would make, but the Blue Jays haven't quite shown themselves to be an organization that makes moves like that. So it's really interesting from that perspective. And I know like kind of the quotes after were that it was like a super tough conversation and all this about how tough it was to kind of send down a guy like that and stuff. But I think it in the grand scheme of things, like hopefully he's able to go down there, work on some things and come back and be the pitcher that he was the past couple seasons.
Yeah, and worth acknowledging too, Swanson was days, weeks away from 5 years service time, at which point he would have been able to refuse demotion. So I can't imagine that's also
That's just a
particularly
coincidence.
happy for him. It's a coincidence, obviously, But to be so close to being able to tell him to I'm not going down and to be sent down, that's got to sting.
I don't think it's a coincidence actually, but well, I mean, like if they hold on and they send down Nate Pearson and Erik Swanson continues to struggle, and then they get to 5 days from now or whatever, and they have to make a tough decision again, and then they have to go to him and be like, hey, we want to send you down. He says, well, no, like I don't know. Like I'm not a professional athlete, so I can't speak on whether or not like they would willingly accept a demotion like that. But I feel like when you're struggling, like you feel like it would almost be something that like how would you say no to that when you have a 9 ERA?
I mean, well, I think there's kind of two sides to that because I mean, if you accept that demotion, who knows if you're back in the big leagues, right? Like statistically, he's almost certainly going to be,
Yeah,
but there's nothing guaranteed. What if you're down in AAA and you blow out your elbow, right?
that's
So
fair. Yeah,
I mean, if I'm him, I mean, I'm not accepting that demotion. But the problem is realistically that it's kind of like he needs Gundam to be placed on the development list, basically, but that's just not an option. And so the next best option would be to have him in AAA on a pretty strict regime and have him working on specific pitches and doing specific things, executing specific pitches, and going from there. Because I mean, that's basically what the Blue Jays did with Alek Manoah for the last couple of years, really, right? Is
yeah.
go through the process with him, go through the motions, and get him back to the point where they were comfortable with him back in the big leagues. And even still, they didn't rush him back, but he was definitely back up. He didn't force the Blue Jays' hand by any stretch. So I think
Yeah.
the Blue Jays would certainly like if Erik Swanson forced their hand, but I mean, they might just end up having to call him back up anyways.
So speaking of Alek Manoah, we have some news from Scott Mitchell of TSN. He just tweeted this out a couple minutes ago. Per sources, Alek Manoah is going for a second opinion on his right elbow. I'm told the expectation at this point is that he is likely going to miss an extended period of time.
That's tough. We kind of expected it, but that's tough.
I mean, you just feel bad for the player, right? Like he's worked so hard he's dealt with so much on field and obviously like probably off field as well, just trying to get back to this point and to have it end that way or at least appear to be ending that way. Like you just feel for the guy.
Just incredibly tough. And if it is TJ, I mean, he probably misses a healthy chunk of next season too, right? That's a
Yeah.
16-month recovery or so. You're
Yeah.
looking at maybe him being back next year come September.
That's and
And
even then, like I like why would you come back for a month?
he's probably
That's
done
a
for this year and
2026.
next.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. I mean, it's extremely not every pitcher in Major League Baseball is getting hurt these days. There's no such thing as too much pitching depth. But wow, that's just so tough to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Feel bad for him and hopefully that second opinion ends up being okay. Like I can just kind of like thinking of like where the Blue Jays pitching depth, like Ricky Tiedemann, obviously he's still not throwing in games. He's throwing in their Florida complex. Like we haven't heard about Landon Morotis. Kendry Rojas is still out. Um, yeah, just really tough times for Blue Jays pitching
The
all
pitching,
around.
yes, the pitching depth is drying up. One name that has been nice though, Adam Mako. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's not
The
all bad news.
I mean if you wanted we can do like a couple minutes, but the double A pitching staff has been really good. Like CJ Van Eyck has had a stellar month of May. Michael Dominguez threw 6 no-hit innings yesterday and he's having a great year as well. And then of course Adam Mako who's been just on fire recently. I mean, the double A staff has really kind of come on in May and like that's when you're looking for player development wins or pitching wins when they've been tough to come by, you certainly are happy to hear that like one of the organizational affiliates is succeeding.
Exactly. Noted friend of the pod, Ian Churchill, also down there in Double A. But yeah, nice to see some success on the starting pitching front in Double A. Doesn't sound like a guy like Mako is likely to be making any kind of substantial jump, but he has suddenly emerged, I would say, as kind of a not a leading candidate, but he's at this point, if your pitching depth starts to run dry, I mean, you, it's very telling that we're looking at the double A rotation right now, which to be fair has been very successful, and we're looking for answers. I don't think that's great.
No, I mean, yeah, like we've kind of had this debate off the pod about like whether Adam Mako will pitch for the Toronto Blue Jays this year, and my answer is definitively no, and your answer is
Don't be shocked.
maybe. I just think like it like the for a guy who is kind of finding his footing in minor league baseball and affiliated baseball and throwing really well, I just don't think that there's a need to rush him to the majors at this point. It's like does he is he a major league pitcher right now? Probably not. Is he going to be a major league pitcher later this season? Also, probably not. I think next year is probably the year where you're looking at him as maybe a guy who comes up and gives you some innings or whatever. And of course, if they end up being sellers or trading away like certain players, if they end up totally blowing it up, like then that accelerates his timeline and other guys' timeline in the system, right? So it's all relative, but I think the way that the team is constructed right now, like there probably isn't exactly a need to rush him and put any of his development at risk as he works his way into being a major league caliber pitcher.
Listen, everything you've said there is very reasonable. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. It would be a fun story.
It would be. It would be. He is undoubtedly a great story in the Blue Jay system, of course. Very unique path to being a affiliated pitcher, a professional pitcher, and a good old Canadian raised, well, partially Canadian raised story.
Uh,
I mean, Pirates this weekend. How are we feeling about that? I mean, we kind of talked about it earlier, but I mean, or I guess earlier this week, but no Skeens, no Paul Jones. The Pirates are similar to the Blue Jays in record, which is certainly not, I would say, where either of us expected these two teams to be entering this series. But what do you like? I mean, we had said 9-4 over the poor stretch, and now they are 6-4. So I think like yes, moving the goalposts a little, but 2 or 3 against the Pirates, and I think you're in a pretty good spot.
yeah, no, I think that's pretty reasonable. I still think 9-4 to get back to 500 is the goal. And I think that you should be trying to sweep these Pirates. They are good, but you're also missing their number one and number two starters. Which one's which? I mean, you decide. They're both incredibly
That's actually
talented.
like pretty sad. I know I put it in the group chat like a while ago where I was like, well, if you guys are living in Toronto and not going to see Paul Skeens pitch if he's throwing while you're there, like what are you doing? But
No,
I
I would say I'm disappointed that the Blue Jays aren't going to face Paul Skeens. I think that would have been a very fun game to
yeah,
watch.
yeah,
They
no.
just don't get him. They just don't get
Well,
him. But
you get
listen,
I think it's Bailey Falter, Mitch Keller, and then TBD on Sunday.
I mean, listen, if Skeens wants to pitch on short rest, I mean, by all means. Listen, here's what I'll say is that the Blue Jays are winners for missing Paul Skeens. The fans are maybe not winners for missing Paul Skeens, but it's an execution thing. You've got to beat the guys ahead of you, and you've been given a gift by all accounts, missing these two young budding aces. So go out and execute and try to sweep the Pirates and get back to 500.
Yeah, it's a pretty big series. I think one thing I wanted to get your opinion on that I meant to ask you, or excuse me, earlier this week, but I ended up just kind of slipping my mind as we recorded the pod. But it's May 31st today, so May obviously coming to an end. And where is the line that you would draw for this team? Like I think like you give them another month because the trade deadline isn't for a while. But where do you draw the line as far as when you need to make a decision on this team's future?
I think that the old adage is if you have time, use it. So you can realistically wait until a healthy chunk of July is done before you ultimately have to decide which path you're taking. Now, with that said, I think that well before then, it will be very much apparent what this Blue Jays team has to offer for the remainder of the 2024 season. And I think even right now, sweep or not, I don't think that the Blue Jays are catching anybody by surprise, barring something unforeseen, hence, the surprise. So I'd say they probably have until mid-July, but we will know well before then if this team has even a lick of opportunity to be buyers at the deadline and take whatever projection system you want, and the outlook is somewhere between murky and not great.
Yeah, I think their June schedule, like I think we'll probably have a fairly clear answer of which direction the team will go by the end of June, because once they get through this Pirates series, they go 4 against Baltimore, Oakland, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Boston, the Yankees. So like not the easiest schedule by any means in June. And if things go poorly, I think that probably seals in your fate. And if they kind of stay around 500, I don't know what direction you kind of go. I think that you would probably have to look at retooling if you're still sitting around 500 by July 1st.
I would be very surprised if Vlad or Bo were not Blue Jays by, call it,
Oh,
September 1st.
no, I agree for sure.
Anybody else, though, I think the discussion could definitely be had depending on how next month went down.
Yes. Well, we will certainly be paying attention. It's every game is important at this point, and they've said it, like they're treating every game like a playoff game, which is probably not what you want to hear in May, but it's the reality of their situation. So very interesting to see how they're gonna react. I think this Pittsburgh series is pretty big, and then Baltimore next week is going to be pretty telling as well as to where if they have actually gained some momentum through these weaker series and how they can kind of carry that into City Connect week against the Baltimore Orioles. But do you have anything else on the jerseys before we run?
I think that they're a win. They're a win in my books, and that's where I'll leave it.
I agree. That's going to do it for us here today at the Bird's Eye View podcast. Make sure you drop a follow or review wherever you get your pods. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. We're there at Bird's Eye View Pod. You can follow us all on Twitter. The pod is at BEV_pod. Jori is at J Negin-Shecter, and I am at Worden_Zach. Thanks so much for listening, and enjoy the games this weekend.